All right, everybody. It is that time. It's time for another edition of Marilyn's Cafe Society. And as promised, I do have a special guest who's returning back to the show. He's been here before, no stranger to the show, and I'd like to say is even a friend of the show. And that, of course, is Dr. Mathew Knowles. Welcome and thank you for returning.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. We have a torrential downpour that's happening here in Houston right now.
Sounds like what we've been experiencing here, thunderstorms and rain for the last 4 or 5 days.
Well, you know, Houston typically this time of the year, we're in the hundreds, but the high today is only 84 and the rest of the week are in the low 80s, which is highly unusual. But we're seeing that all across the country, right? We're seeing Seattle, Washington with 104, 106.
Yeah.
So I tell you, something is going on. I don't know what it is, but it makes me reinforce why the government is trying to get us to Mars fast. It might be that we have to be on Mars in the future.
That was actually, that was my cafe talk question last week. I put it out there about Jeff Bezos and his flight that's coming up to, he's going into space. And then they're going to turn right back around and come back. And I'm thinking all of this exploration is for a reason, right?
Oh, it's always for a reason. There are light years, no pun intended, but light years ahead of us. And knowing what maybe 20, 30 years from now looks like, again, we might have to get off of the planet. Who knows?
Well, you know, over the weekend, I think on Saturday, the tornado signals was going off like every 2 to 3 hours here. And I said, if that signal goes off one more time, I'm going to join Jeff Bezos on that trip to space.
I don't think you want to do that. That might be more than you want to buy into. I can. It sounds like some of those trips could be one-way trips. I don't want to do that.
No, it was actually a petition. That's the second part of the cafe talk from last week. There's a petition, actually two petitions out there. You know, there's people out here who hate billionaires. And so they have come up with these petitions to not allow Jeff Bezos to return back to planet Earth once he gets out in space. So my question was to the people who participated is, would you sign that petition?
Oh, not to do that. No, not
Me
at all.
either. No.
Not at all. I wouldn't even think about doing that.
I know.
But I am fascinated by the fact that you said that there's some people that hate billionaires. I try not to use the word hatred in my vocabulary. Let's start there. When someone hates something or another person, I guess that bothers me because my oldest daughter and my son-in-law are both billionaires. So I guess they hate Beyonce and hate Jay-Z.
Well, don't you think it's hate if you want to sign a petition for him not to come back to planet Earth?
Oh no, I thought you said yes, people that hate billionaires.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't assume, but if you put out a petition for another human being not to be able to return back to planet Earth, then I just assume that it's a level of hate there.
Well, maybe they hate the person, but not all people that are billionaires. I applaud, especially our young Black people who can accumulate wealth.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we've been culturally conditioned as Black people, going back to slavery, that we shouldn't have the opportunity of wealth, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
So I encourage to build wealth. I love seeing our young people do that, and that's one of the ways we get to really have a say in what's going on in society.
This is a capitalistic country. What
It
I love,
is.
what I love most though is that they're hitting that multi-millionaire um, milestone as well as billionaire milestone, but they still have a heart for people and their culture and their communities, and so they're giving back. That's
Yeah.
what I love most about it.
Marilyn, I find that to be true in the music industry. I find it to be true in entrepreneurship, in corporate, in almost every aspect. When you find highly successful people, most of them have a real passion to give back and help others. I found that to be true of most people that I've met that have accumulated that type of wealth. They really do care about others. They care about helping their community.
Yes, 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 and that's awesome. Well, listen, I don't know if you got the memo, but it is National Iced Tea Month. Do you have your tea?
I actually have a hot tea.
Okay, well, that'll work.
Yeah,
Cheers, cheers to that.
cheers. I did not get the memo, but I love to drink hot tea, and that's what I have.
And that's what they say that we should drink our beverages warm or hot. But because it's National Iced Tea Month, I thought I'd do the iced tea. This is green tea with some lemon.
Oh, great. Looks
Mm-hmm.
very refreshing.
It is. It is. And it's also Black History Month. And that's why you were here, because once again, I'm spotlighting you and all that you've accomplished and all that you do. But it's also National DJ Month. Do you have a favorite DJ?
Hmm. I don't actually.
Okay.
I,
Well,
I,
that's
I
fair.
have to say I don't have someone I would say that's my favorite DJ. I listen to many DJs,
Yeah,
but I can't just right now pull off a name that I would say that's my favorite DJ.
gotcha. Well, coming from Chicago, growing up in Chicago, we had this team of DJs when I was coming up called the Hot Mix Five. And so I want to shout them out because they're my favorite. But DJ Spinderella,
I like her. I
yeah,
like DJ Spinderella.
that female power. And
Yeah.
then also DJ Cassidy. He, of course, um, is world renowned, but since we've been in the pandemic, he started that Pass the Mic series. Have you heard about it?
I love that. I got to watch SWV and Escape. I
Yeah.
got to watch Earth, Wind, and Fire and the OJs.
No, no, no.
Uh,
Isley Brothers.
Isley Brothers, you're
And
right.
you're
Earth, Wind, and
thinking about
Fire was with somebody. Earth, Wind, and Fire was
it
against.
was Earth, Wind, and Fire versus the Isley Brothers.
And
Versus.
then and then who was the Isley Brothers was against who?
It was Isley Brothers versus Earth, Wind, and Fire. You're talking about verses, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about verses.
Verses.
I'm talking about verses.
Yeah, Pass the Mic is a little bit different. That's when DJ Cassidy um, invites all these singers and musical talents to sing along as he played their songs on the internet. Earth, Wind, and Fire was featured though, and it was so good. It was so good.
Well, I've made a transition. Other than academically, I'm really out of the music industry, and so my focus is on academics, public speaking, and film and TV, as we have four film and TV projects. And
Oh,
I'm the type of person, when I left corporate America, I left corporate America. Uh, when I left the music industry recently, I, I move on to what I'm working on and focus on that. So I'm not listening to a lot of music, watching videos, keeping up with what's happening in the music industry, other than from an academic standpoint.
understood. Taking a break from it all. Whole,
No, I'm not taking a break. I'm done.
you're done. I mean,
I'm done.
even from appreciating music, just,
Oh, I appreciate music, but
yeah,
I don't follow it like I used to keep up with watch the award shows, that type
yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
I
I
don't
get it.
do that anymore. Yeah.
Understood. Understood. All right, some quick thoughts on Juneteenth becoming a national holiday. You
That's a
can give
very good question.
you can
That's a
give
very good question.
a one word or a one sentence response.
You know, that's a really great question because I just want to make sure that as Black people, that this holiday didn't get pushed so quickly through by the Republican Party as to satisfy us and sidetrack us from some of the major issues like police reform and others, voting rights. I just hope they didn't dangle a carrot to us to get us off topic.
Sort of like a pacifier.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And so we know recently the Derek Chauvin sentence took place, you know, the murderer of George Floyd, 22 and a half years. One word or one sentence. What are your thoughts?
Well deserved the sentence. And it should be interesting what those years will be like in prison. I noticed that he already has, when he was sentenced, he had the Aryan haircut already. So maybe that would be his protection.
Oh, very interesting. All right. This one I hemmed and hawed and went back and forth on and prayed about it and thought should I ask him, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you this because it landed in my YouTube box maybe 2 weeks ago. There's a controversy, and you just said you're not really following music anymore, but there's a controversy on an old song that you probably are familiar with by Destiny's Child called Cater to You.
I'm
And
not aware of a controversy at all.
well, folks have a lot of time, so I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, the controversy is in the lyrics. They think that the lyrics don't match where women should be in life right now from a feminist. I guess these are hardcore feminists who are taking issue now with some of the lyrics in the song.
Yeah, I can't speak on that. This is the first I've heard of that. But
Okay.
I could say I could see their perspective. I mean, as an educator, you respect other perspectives. Everybody has the opportunity and the right to do that. I can see that as we evolve, uh, as the movements evolve, the things that happened 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 20 years ago could lose some of the being relevant or as relevant. So I don't know specifically. Again, I am so happy. This is why I'm so happy to be out of the music industry. I just don't have time for that kind of stuff.
I know.
And I hope they continue to talk because I don't want them to stop talking about Destiny's Child. Controversy sells. So please continue to voice your opinion.
Yes. All right. And so, of course, speaking of that, you are the founder of Music World Entertainment Corporation. From all that I've learned about you, you are a prolific business and music executive, producer, negotiator, university professor, public speaker, podcaster. Shout out to your podcast. And you are author of several books And so, based on what I've read in this latest book of yours, Destiny's Child, The Untold Story, you are also a passionate advocate and a super dad. Now, when we look at
No,
that,
I wouldn't say super dad. Uh, I wouldn't put that type of affection on fatherhood and parenting. Uh, I've certainly made mistakes as a dad. I love my daughters, and but I wouldn't say super dad. Super proud of my daughters. That I am.
very good, very good. So when we kind of throw all of that into the pot and you look at all that you have accomplished, and I did read Racism from the Eyes of a Child, and I know that you were kind of on that success path based on what I read. So there's no question that you were going to be successful in life, but did the little boy, did the teenager, did the young man that you became um, fathom the level of success that you have achieved, that you would
I
accomplish?
did. I did because I had wonderful parents. My dad not very educated, only to the third grade. He often had a joke. The first day he went to school in the third grade, the teacher didn't show up. The second day he went to school in the third grade, the books still hadn't showed up. And the third day, the school caught on fire. And that was his last day of going to school. But my dad worked three jobs, and he was a volunteer fireman. In addition to that, and I remember him listening to his CB radio, a few hours he had to sleep because he wanted to help others. My mother was a colored maid, made $3 a day. By the way, my dad made $30 a week. My mother made $15 a week. But she convinced the white woman she worked for to give her all the hand-me-downs. And she made these beautiful quilts, her and two of her best girlfriends. My dad convinced the white man he worked for, his main job as a produce driver, to let him use the produce truck. He would tear down old houses and sell the coppers and buy old cars and sell all the parts. My parents taught me entrepreneurship. My parents taught me that I could dream and dream big. So I owe a lot to my parents and my grandfather, Dave Hoke, who also was an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship runs in my family, generations of entrepreneurs.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So that speaks to how the power that we have actually to to accomplish that which we set out to accomplish in life. For some, you might take the long way around, and it takes a little bit longer, but if it is to be, it is up to me, right?
Well, you have to believe,
Yeah.
but again, that's why I love to teach, because I have an opportunity to encourage young people that they can dream big. I believe if you don't believe it, nobody else will.
This is
So it takes the same amount of energy, Marilyn, to think of a small idea as it does a big idea. So again, my parents taught me to dream and dream big and to believe. Um, I shared that with Beyonce and Solange, the same concept I learned from my parents. And I remember you talked about racism from the eyes of a child. I talk about this in that book. My grandfather, Dave Hoke, owned 300 acres of land. And two things about my grandfather. The first time I ever heard a white man call a black man Mr., and I have a chapter called Mr. Hoke, was I was in the summers, I would go down to my grandparents. We call it the country in rural Alabama. And my grandfather was a regional moonshine distributor also. And these two white men on a Saturday morning knocked on the door and said, "Is Mr. Hogue here?" And I had never heard, me and I have first cousin. We were ecstatic to hear a white person call a black man Mr. But my grandfather also, with that 300 acres of land, he would parcel 100 acres and sell it to the nearest paper mill. He would lease out the land, not sell it, but lease out the land so they could cut down the trees and make paper at the paper mill. And then he would go behind them and farm. And I just thought it was absolutely genius, Marilyn, that my grandfather was getting paid to get them to take all the trees and clear his land. He was getting paid for them to clear his land so he could farm behind it. I just thought that was brilliant. And that's how I grew up. My grandmother on my father's side, she had a speakeasy after hours place next to the, across the street from she lived next to the biggest club in that part of Alabama. So I grew up watching people around me being practicing entrepreneurship.
Yes. Yes. And that, you also said this in your book as well, that the things that you are exposed to and the things that you see in life kind of shape, as a kid, kind of shapes who you become as an adult. And so that is amazing. That truly is. And I'm so glad that it all worked out for you.
Thank you.
It all worked out. It all worked out. Now listen, and back to Destiny's Child, the untold story. In the book, you and others who played a crucial role in the group's development over the years kind of share those experiences and narratives throughout the book, during the group's various stages on their journey to becoming Destiny's Child. And so here's my question. Did you all tell it all, or are you saving some for a sequel?
No, I'm saving some for the documentary.
The documentary, very nice.
We didn't tell it all. I didn't tell it all. But there's a tremendous amount that people didn't know, especially how the group got started. I wasn't there from a management perspective in the beginning. I was doing what my passion was, playing basketball, dropping Beyonce off and picking her up. The mother we owned a hair salon, and she was working at the hair salon on the weekends. But Destiny's Child started out when they were very young girls, called Girls Time, here in Houston, and it was many members. A lot to do was made on the membership change in 2020, but there have been, 15 membership changes. It's always been member changes. And so, I thought it was important also to let people not hear from me, but the many people that ensured and worked very hard for the success of Destiny's Child, from their choreographer, vocal coach, people that were there. This is not hearsay. This is factual.
Yes. And it's quite different how that book is written, that you do include those individuals and give them the opportunity to share what they remember.
I played team sports. I played basketball in junior high, high school, college. And I learned a lot from team sports. Team sports is not about I, it's about we. And you're only as strong as the weakest member. Fortunately, that team of people in Destiny's Child, the Untold Story, look where they are today, highly successful. And so there was a great team put together with some young ladies, young girls in the beginning that had a dream, had tremendous talent, and would listen because they were kids. And I talk about that. We're in the music industry, when you're 14, 15, 16, we just don't allow you to make $1 million business decisions. And, I thought it was important that the reader understand that any young teenage artist, they're not making business decisions. they're participating in the creative, yes, but not in the business. You just, nobody would do that, right? Nobody would let a 13-year-old make $1 million business decision. They just don't have any knowledge of that.
Well, some people think outside of the box. And, if we go back in history in life, teenagers were doing quite a bit back in the day. But you did bring the girls, the young ladies up, I think, with that business.
Yeah,
mindset.
I can't speak, if you notice, I said no one in the music industry. I can't speak about other
Yeah,
parts of things. I'm
yeah,
very specific when I talk. I stay in my lane, and the things I talk about is because I've become an expert in. And things I don't know, I'll be the first to say, no, Marilyn, I don't know about that. Uh, but I can speak for my music industry. We don't let teenagers make $1 million decisions.
yeah. All right. And so you've already answered this question, I believe, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway. Um, just again, just kind of putting gravy all around your name. You've developed, you've managed, you've produced some of the world's biggest artists, musicians, singers across multiple genres of music. And if I'm not mistaken, this year marks the 30th year anniversary for Music World
You know
Entertainment.
what? You know what, Marilyn? It's hard for me to even keep up. I remember, we memorialized the 25th year.
Yeah.
So I think this might be the 30th year. I don't even think about that, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. You're done. You're
I'm
done.
done. I'm done with it.
Okay. Well, listen about this documentary for Destiny's Child, The Untold Story. How long will it take? Is it going to be
I
Netflix? Is it going
I
to be?
can't speak on that at all, other
Oh,
than what I've said.
okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So let's just get back into some general talk real quick. Um, as you know, a lot has happened in this past year. My goodness. We had the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdowns, and the disruptions of life as a result of the pandemic. My gosh, we couldn't find toilet paper or paper towels, and uh, the social and racial unrest that followed with the protests, and then, of course, the unfortunate, tremendous loss of life. And I know for me, it was a time, at least the first maybe 4 or 5 months of all of this, I felt like I just kicked into autopilot and was just kind of going through life so in slow motion. And I liken it to the expression, or actually there's a poem, I think it's Footsteps. Are you familiar with that? It's a poem, I don't know it verbatim, but there's two footsteps walking along a beach, and you see the two sets of footsteps in the sand, and then at some point there's just one set. It's like one set of feet disappear, and eventually it picks back up, and it just kind of speaks to how God will carry you in life when you feel like you can't go any further until you get strong enough and pick yourself back up again. And so that's what all of this was like for me. Um, for you, how did you get through this year?
Well, I had an opportunity to do a commencement uh, at Florida Memorial University, which is a HBCU, and to thank and encourage the class of 2021, because there'll be no class in modern day that would have gone through all the things you just said. So, and our young people really stepped up, in my opinion, and had the social courage, of what I call social courage, to speak up, speak out quicker, sooner, faster, to get on their social media in a positive way, to influence change, to get in the streets like we did when I was young, to influence change. And I'm very proud of young people, very proud of our young people. But we had poor leadership, and there needs to be accountability that this country had poor leadership. That is why we to 650 million Americans dying was because of our leadership. But we also, Marilyn, have to be accountable that the reason that we had past tense that leadership, and I don't think Black people we should ever forget, is because we didn't go to vote 4 years ago like we did the previous years, for Obama. And we have to be accountable and use that to fuel us to never let that happen again. And I'm the person that's going to make people uncomfortable and remind you that we didn't vote. And that's why we had this leadership that damn near killed us. But it also revealed all the things you said. It revealed the racial strife in America, the police brutality and reform that's needed in America, health and wellness. When you look at structural racism, and I choose to use the word structural racism, because when you build a house, you first build a structure, and then you build the systems. So I always use that word. But when you look at structural racism, it impacts us Black folks in every area, from health and wellness. What did, if you look at the history of the unfortunate people who died of COVID, what did they have in common? Unfortunately, it was obesity, something that I have to continue to work on every day, that I talk about when I work with American Heart Association and American Cancer Society. We have to understand early detection in our lives. We have to understand the fundamentals of why education and knowledge is so important, because it opens so many avenues for us that we wouldn't be able to explore and understand if we didn't increase our knowledge. Knowledge is power, but we also see structural racism and housing, what it does. We see it in every area of our lives. So I'm proud to say that through COVID, although we lost a lot of lives, and my heart always will go out to them, it did teach us to adapt and modify our behavior. And I think that it'll make the world a better place. Some of the things we take away from the last year will actually help us in some areas. We'll learn to communicate through technology that we didn't utilize. How young people utilize it. It was those of us that were old, that we didn't really understand Zoom and other technologies. And so it forced us to learn to, to increase our technological abilities. So there were some good things that came out of COVID. I'm the person that, I remember a prayer, Marilyn, that I was going down an escalator at LAX airport years ago, and a nun from Mexico was had a jar, missionary, asked for money, gave me a card, and on the back of the card, I finally read, it said, pray not for a life free from trouble, pray for triumph over trouble. For what you and I call adversity, God, the universe, calls opportunity. So I always look at, when there's adversity in my life, what is really the universe telling me that the opportunity that exists?
Yeah. I think it takes some of us a while to get to that point. We just want the adversity to go away, but there's always a lesson, right? There's always a lesson. And so,
change, Marilyn, is supposed to be uncomfortable.
yeah.
The only people that I know that really, really love change, you know who it is? Babies. They love their diapers changed. Other than that, I don't really know anybody that really, yeah, I want to change. No, change is uncomfortable. We have to adapt and modify. I tell you, you asked a question, and I feel remiss if I didn't say this. I also depended on my therapist, a Black man that I've gone to for years. And when the COVID came, I was so frightened that I was going to die. I mean, I was overly cautious to the point my wife was like, "You're crazy." And I called my therapist and I said, "Hey, I don't know why I'm going through this." And he shared with me that when there's a crisis in our lives, whatever we bring to the crisis is multiplied 25 times. I brought to the crisis of COVID my fear, because I'm a cancer survivor. I brought my fear of death that I hadn't dealt with yet as a cancer survivor. So it magnified during COVID. And I say this because I say to all of you, when you have challenges, there are professionals out there that can help. And as Black people, that whole misnomer about going to someone else for help, that's a bad thing. It should be looked at just the opposite. I think it's an amazing thing. I think it shows amazing strength, amazing courage, and being smart. When my business is not going right, I go to others and ask, "Hey, help me." So those are the things that I did.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's something that we tend to, well, for me, prayer helps. We've been taught in our culture as Black people, give it to the Lord, take it to God in prayer, give it to God and let Him handle it. But there are times and points in life where we do need that outside help, that professional help to.
I don't subscribe to your belief, but I respect it.
I thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So one last thing, and then I'm going to let you go. Speaking of change and social courage and things of that nature, last year I was asked to join a group, the Black Heroes Matter Coalition, to help in the effort of renaming Chicago's Lakeshore Drive after Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, who was the founder of the city of Chicago. And so, after a year or two of lobbying and meetings and fights and all of that, this past Friday, it finally passed City Council. And so now the iconic Lakeshore Drive in Chicago is now called Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Lakeshore Drive. And I know it's a mouthful, but we finally got it to happen, and I'm so excited. Now you
Well,
say,
congratulations, first of all. I know that requires a lot of hard work, and so I congratulate you. And we need more of that. There's those opportunities throughout America where, slavery was a terrible thing, and most of us don't even understand slavery and how it impacts us, how we think today as Black people and white people. It impacts white people also, slavery. I mean, we're talking, your you talk to a 70-year-old white man and his great-great-great-grandfather was a slave owner. That wasn't far ago. That wasn't long ago. So it's not surprising that some of those beliefs are still here today. And the same with Black people, how we think about each other. We were conditioned by slavery that if we lived in a big house, we, of a different complexion, during slavery, then we were better, or we should tell on each other, or we've been conditioned through slavery, all of this stuff. So slavery really has impacted the whole world, actually, and not in a positive way.
Yeah, the residual effects of all of that psychological trauma and divisiveness. Now, I'm glad you brought that up, and you said something earlier about not looking at social media and following things that are said online. But as a result of this major historic feat that we've been celebrating, I have been kind of peeking with one eye online to see what people are saying about it. And there's a lot of negativity, and a lot of it is from our own kind who you would think would be excited as we are about the renaming of Lakeshore Drive. But there's a lot of criticism about, our efforts and energy should have been more towards some of the trying to eradicate some of the violence and crime that's happening in the city. Um, so
Well, you
what,
know, one part of leadership, Marilyn, I think, is about understanding as a leader, you will be criticized. As a visionary, you will be criticized. Uh, and everyone doesn't share your perspective. I've just learned, and this is my 15th year as an educator, I've learned to appreciate others' perspectives. Don't take it personal. Don't take that on. Just let that bounce off of you and say that's their perspective. Uh, Also, is there another way we can say it that maybe they can understand? But I'm not going to lose sleep because someone doesn't agree with me. That's not what leadership is about.
yeah, yes, thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, so the whole point of it was it was all symbolism to just slowly chip away at the institutional and systemic racism that even caused his name to be passed over, going back hundreds of years when they were actually renaming Lakeshore Drive to Lakeshore Drive. His name was thrown out of the pickings. But anyway, thank you for that. Thank you for that input. Now let's just real quick wrap up. Are there any closing remarks that you'd like to share before I let you go today?
Well, I always enjoy this. I always enjoy talking about my perspective on racism. I, you know, I have viewed my perspective because, I never went to a Black school until my junior year of college, growing up in Gaston, Alabama with George Wallace. It's one thing to talk about racism. It's another thing when you got beat, electric prodded, spit on, and all the other things that I encountered. I love talking about health and wellness. I'm a cancer survivor. And it's because of early detection that maybe I'm even here to talk to you, because I believe firmly that early detection is the key. The sooner you find it, the better the outcome, regardless of what it is. And I always encourage Black people. I certainly believe in faith, but I don't believe faith without action. So I always combine the two. And I always talk about health and wellness. I always talk about the importance of education. I also always love to talk about the importance of building wealth. We've been conditioned, we gotta be poor. I don't believe that. I don't think we have to be poor. I don't think there's anything wrong with building financial wealth for yourself and your family. And that allows you to help others. I can't help you when I'm broke. I can't help you at all when I'm broke. so those are just some fundamental things. I believe in teamwork. Uh, I'm fortunate, grew up in a family environment that made it very clear to me that I could dream, and I passed that on. I used to say, if Beyonce and Solange had it came to me when I was a little kid and said, Daddy, I want to be a doctor, I would have said, go to med school, and when you finish, I would have bought a hospital. That's how I think. Not go to school and then work for somebody. Go to school and then I'll buy a hospital. The same way my former wife, when she was bored of being a housewife, was, I want to do something. I was like, what's your passion? It's about finding your passion, that thing that excites and motivates you. And I told her, once she went to cosmetology school, we would own a hair salon. Not that she would work with someone, but we would own it. And I think that's the way of thinking that I see young Black people today having. And I think some of us that are older need to change our way of thinking and look at other ways to think and open our minds and awareness. And I enjoy these opportunities, Marilyn. So thank you for giving me this opportunity on Marilyn's Cafe.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for sharing some time with me. And of course, we're going to keep in touch so that we can find out more about that documentary and all the other wonderful things that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Peace.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Dr. Mathew Knowles stopping by Maryland's Cafe Society on YouTube, once again, just sharing his wisdom and, of course, being so open and candid about his life and how and why he was able to achieve and accomplish all the things in life that he has done. So thank you, Dr. Mathew Knowles, for stopping by the show. All right. And so as I share with him, for those who haven't been keeping up, yes, we, Black Heroes Matter organization, a coalition along with Alderman David Moore, Alderwoman Sophia King, the transportation chair of transportation committee chair, Alderman Howard Brookins, and all of those on the transportation committee. And I think there was about 54, what was it? 34 alderpersons who voted yes on this historic ordinance to rename the historic and iconic Lakeshore Drive to Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Drive. And so, and we're even going to congratulate and mention Chicago's Mayor, Lori Lightfoot, who proposed the compromise ordinance. And so we are just ecstatic about this. And we do want to continue to chip away, as I said, at the racism that permeates communities across this country, and especially in the city of Chicago and surrounding suburbs. Now, as a result of that huge accomplishment, there will be a rally in Grant Park, followed by a caravan that will drive the route of the newly named Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Lakeshore Drive. That's going to take place this Saturday, July 3rd, beginning at noon. So make sure that you be there. All right. All right. And also, just want to remind you, if you have a business, a product, or service, and you want to get some additional exposure via my show, my website, and or blog, just send an email to producer@marylandscafesociety.com. Even if you have show ideas, just reach out, producer@marylandscafesociety.com. Remember to go to marylandscafesociety.com website. There you can get connected with me on social media and even the blog, which is on WordPress. And we'll get that blog up later this week. And also YouTube right here. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share And tune in tomorrow because we have another guest who's going to be stopping by. Listen, this is officially summer season. And so we're just going to be bringing you some summer specials sporadically across the summer. And then, of course, as we start the new season, this fall with a whole new edition of Maryland's Cafe Society. You stay with us, all right? So before we go, we're going to tell you what love is, and love is being able to go to church again. Isn't that the truth for a lot of us? Although I have to be honest, because of my work schedule, especially in the last 4 years at least, I've been an online attender of church. But a lot of people are happy to be back in church. So that is what love is. And that's it. So remember to live, to laugh, and to love. And we'll do this all over again tomorrow, right here on Maryland's Cafe Society on YouTube. As always, it's a pleasure and a privilege. Peace, everybody. Take care.